And I tried on some hats, and here was a large hat. I guess they called them leggings. It was a kind of a cream-colored straw, and it had a wide blue ribbon around the flat crown, and streamers down the back, blue and white stripes, ribbon. Oh, that's the very one, Aunt Elizabeth said. That looks so nice on you, Ethel. And it had an elastic under the chin. She says, that's the one to get. Well, being one never to argue with my parents or anyone in authority, I took the hat, much against my will. I thought, oh, this doesn't go along with my fall dark green and wine-colored velvet dress. But I thought, well, I better get it. So I got the hat and put it on. And oh, I felt so uncomfortable with that big hat on, with the light blue and white ribbon and straw. But I wore it. So then they took me down to take the train to come back to Merriman. And of course my father had been notified that I was to be in Merriman and he was going to come to meet me. So I had to change trains though. And somewhere along the line, I don't know where. And I stopped off. Of course, I felt a little like a seasoned traveler by this time.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And I was standing.
Once before. Yeah.
I was standing on the platform of the, and a lady, an older lady, came and talked to me. Are you alone? She said. Yes, I said, I am. Where are you going? Don't you have anybody with you? I told her where I was going. She said, no, I'm going. Alone? All alone? I said, yes. All alone. Oh, and she made some rather caustic remarks. Anybody would allow a girl my age to be traveling alone. Anyway, she went on then. Well, I got on the train. I think she saw to it that I got on the train properly, so I stayed around. When we got into Merriman early in the morning, sometime after midnight, my father was not there to meet me. And I got off the train and I looked around and the conductor, I said, my father is supposed to be here, Papa was supposed to be here to meet me. Yeah. Well, he says, I'll tell you, you see that light over there? See that house with a light in it? He said, that is where people go to get in and need a room to sleep in, a bed to sleep. They'll have a bed all made up for you. And you just go over there, he said. You'll be all right. You just go over there and walk in, and they'll have a bed for you. Well, with fear and trembling, I walked over in the dark to this house. And went in. Sure enough, they had not a hide-a-bed, they didn't have them, they had what they call sanitary couches.
Yes.
With wings on them.
Yeah.
I think you know.
Yes.
You slept on one
Yes.
So. And that was made up in the living room, ready to be slept in. So here I stayed. Blew out the light, I guess. I don't know whether I blew it out or turned it down. But anyway, in the morning, my father, something had happened, and he had gotten lost on the way, or something had held him up, and he didn't get there until early in the morning, and after that light really came.
How much did it cost to sleep there?
I don't know.
You don't remember that?
I do not know.
You had
I don't
a little
remember
money.
about paying. Oh, I must have had some money. I don't remember about it, but I suppose I did. Anyway, then was the long ride home, which was
How many miles?
from Merriman, Nebraska. It was 25 miles to Martin, and then on another 25 miles. It must have took all day to get home.
You mean you could make 50 miles in a day? I know.
It might,
That's awesome. Yeah.
With a team and wagon.
Yeah.
Start early.
Yeah. Sure.
So then I got home, and oh, how happy I was to see my little sisters. And then while I had been gone, my father had taught Esther No, that was when I came back from,
When they sent you down to,
when, the next year, when I did go down to school.
you gotta,
Yes.
I thought you went directly from Nebraska to there. I didn't know, to Kansas.
No,
Well, then
not to Kansas.
What,
No,
what
this had
month of the
nothing to
year
do with
was
Kansas.
this? Was this cold weather? Must have been pretty
It
cold.
was in, I suppose it was in October that I came back.
How old were you?
I was 13. I was
And
13.
then where did you go to school? To bed?
I didn't go to school.
For that year then? You
No, I
stayed
was
there?
out of school that whole year then, the rest of the year. But, you know, being in a family of teachers,
You were learning.
and I was curious, and
Well, our
I
dinner
just
tables
sort of
were...
absorbed a lot of things and learned.
Do
And
you
I did a
remember
lot of
our
reading.
conversations at dinner tables? I do.
Uh-huh.
Where Mother and Dad would argue about grammar and history
Oh,
and
yeah.
things, so
Oh,
we were
goodness,
learning, and
terrific.
they
We
liked it.
learned.
Yeah.
And we were learning without formal... But Leonard was attending the day school, wasn't he?
Oh, yes, he and Lebius were going to school. Now,
To
Dad
dance.
had the boys in school.
In other words, they were going to Indian school.
They were going to the Indian school, and of course Lebius was beyond the grades they had, but he gave him special work to do.
Sure.
And Leonard was in one of the grades.
The other white people, there weren't many there, were not allowed, were they, to go to the Indian
Oh, they
school?
were allowed if they wanted to,
Uh-huh.
but they didn't. There weren't many whites there.
Then you
Just the government
I
teaching.
see. Then you, I suppose the Pomeroy boy went.
Oh, he had finished his work. He was down in fall.
Yes, yeah.
Well, I wanna-
Anyway, that's, I think you've heard my voice long
No,
enough.
we have not. I've got to hear about Kansas. When you went to
Honey, that
Kansas.
was when I was 7 years old.
Oh, you went to, they
We lived
sent
on
her
the
to
home
Kansas to visit.
finish school. All right,
We gotta know.
I better finish this chronological here. The next summer, the Indian, the BIA people always had a month's vacation during the summer on pay. So the whole family went to Nebraska and on down to Kansas on the train to visit our relatives. My mother was raised in Atchison, Kansas, and her people lived there. And my father's people all lived around Surprise. Those were still there. So that's the way we spent and our vacation that summer. And so while we were there, the folks decided it was time for me to be getting into school. So they made arrangements for me to stay there in Surprise, and my Aunt Ethel was teaching the 7th and 8th grade, had the 2 grades in one room in the little town school there, and the 9th grade came in for an English class, I believe, there. So they decided that it was time for me to go to school, and by that time I was 14, and I hadn't had the 7th grade yet. So I started to stay at another Trappenhoff's, but they had decided to go to California for the winter. So then I moved down into the same place that my Aunt Ethel boarded and lived. And she and another teacher. And I kind of worked for part of my trouble. The folks gave them some, and then I helped with the dishes and did anything that needs to be done for Mrs. Foreman, and stayed there where my Aunt Ethel stayed. And I started to school. I remember so well looking at the other girls and wondering just how I should wear my hair so that I didn't look too different from the other girls coming off of an Indian reservation where I had no companionship with other girls. I was sensitive to the fact that I didn't know too much about how I should dress and so on. Of course, Mother had made clothes for me and so on. But I can remember about that. And I got started to school, and Aunt Ethel said to me, "Now, Ethel, you know, you're older than the other children in these grades, and I see no reason why you can't take the 7th and 8th grade both this year." She had both grades in the room. She said, "Would you like to do that?" Sure, I was glad to do that. I don't remember that it was difficult because I was just sat there and I would go into both classes was always, and then get the lessons ready for each class. And as she said, I was older and more able to do it. And
Did you make any special friends of the girls? Or were you still a little withdrawn?
the Methodist minister got a Mildred Rowe. What was it? Moe. Her father was a Methodist minister. She's the only one that I remember that I would kind of play with. Because I had to get home to help get supper ready, and then I'd help with the dishes afterwards. I really didn't have too much free time taking all of that work.
Well, you were used to responsibility.
And I was used to it. But I looked at, from a distance, I was quite jealous of Nina Chapman. She was a 16-year-old high school girl who was going with the country school teacher that I had such a crush on. And I see her walking down the street. She was real stylish. I thought, oh boy, isn't that great?
They run around with teachers,
Wonderful. Wouldn't it be wonderful to be that sophisticated?
Oh boy.
Anyway, I didn't.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, anyway, I'm kind of letting my hair down here.
Well, I want you to because
Anyway, that was the winter I learned to play the piano a little bit, because I hadn't taken lessons. But Aunt Ethel had the music of Star of the East. And it's where you have the left-hand chord and then you make ripples. Star of the East. And with the chords. And I kicked out. She kind of helped me a little bit on learning to read the notes. And I would spend my evenings working on that. I must have made a test of myself for the others that were trying to read. But anyway, she kept encouraging me to learn, and I did, and I learned how to play Star of the East. And from that, I used that as a base for playing other tunes.
the chords.
I used the chords, but I would play other tunes and using those chords. Well, anyway,
And how'd you get home then, this time?
the next spring we took the examination, the state examination. Had to take an exam. There was a state examination given to all 8th graders. And I went into the high school room. The high school superintendent had charge of all the kids in the county in there. And this Chauncey Ludden that I decided, so he was one of them, and he'd go out
Where are you
for
now? I don't believe
back in the ending of the school year.
You're back at Surprise. Yes.
And I'm still in Surprise. And he'd go out and, oh, shucks, those are easy questions. He'd get through them in no time at all, and I would work and work. I'd always be the last one through. And no trick at all. The way it turned out, he failed his examination.
Sure.
Well, as it happened, I was such a thorough person and wouldn't give up until I'd finished everything right. In fact, they gave it again a while later for anybody that either wanted to try again so they'd pass or raise their grades in some subject. And Aunt Ethel says, well, Ethel, why don't you go on in now and take third one or two that I didn't do quite so well and take those over again. Maybe you can get a better grade. Well, I went along with it. And I took them over again, so I got a better grade. I got 100% in mental arithmetic. And
Oh, boy.
mental arithmetic.
Yeah.
Well, as a result, with all of that pushing and boosting and all from my aunt and making me try again, why, I happened to get the highest grade in the county. So I got a letter that I was to come to the graduation for my award. But you know, I was so anxious to get home. And I told Aunt Elizabeth, she said, by that time my grandfather had sold the farm and had bought a house right across the street from Foreman's where I was living. And I was over there then the last week that I was there. And she said, well, aren't you going to stay and go to the graduation exercises? Oh, no, Aunt Elizabeth, I think I'll just go home. So I did. I went home.
Went the same route.
Same route.
Dad met
I
you.
was a seasoned traveler again.
Oh, sure.
And I don't even remember that trip.
Whatever happened to your hat, Ethel?
Oh, yes, it is.
Nice leghorn.
Yes.
I do not know.
You
I
don't?
think it got burnt up. I don't ever remember wearing it again.
Is that so?
I hated that
You
hat.
hated it.
It didn't go with your outfit?
It didn't go with my outfit.
Yeah.
Then he went to
No.
high school and then...
Oh, you don't want to hear all about that.
Ethel, this is my one chance. I haven't had a chance to ask you all these
Till I
questions.
finished just about my education.
No.
Where were you?
We want to hear...
We gotta have the
Your love
romances and
affair.
everything else.
Your-
Oh, you can't have, doesn't take me all day. I ran it. You go nice one. I went home, and that's when, oh, was I thrilled, especially to see Esther and Rose. And by this time, Dad loved children, and he always was very close to his children, especially when they were little. And by this time, he would take them up on his lap, and he
Now,
had taught
how
Esther to
old were
read.
you then? I mean, how old was I then?
Well, you must have been about 4. By this time, Esther had learned to read. He had taught her to read. And Rose some, I suppose, but Esther was reading, and I couldn't believe it. And so then that summer, then they said, well, we'll send Ethel to Paducah to go to school, high school.
Now, Paducah was 30 miles away.
Paducah was 30 miles across the Badlands. It was the county seat of the county north of us. And it was an organized county. It was off the reservation.
About 200, 300 people there?
I suppose at that time.
Huh? Kadoka.
Paducah. It's an Indian word.
Oh,
Hole in the
Hole in the
wall.
wall, right. That's
Hole
what
in
it
the
is,
wall.
Bill. That's what it means, hole in the wall. We went across a beautiful area of Badlands, past Creek Basin. Went into Paducah. So the folks' mother went into, I stayed home. I didn't go along. I think I stayed home.
Take care of the
Took
children.
care of you and Rose. Maybe they took Rose. I don't remember.
You probably.
But I know Esther and Leonard and I stayed home. Cows had to be milked. So Leonard was to milk the cows, and I took care of Esther. And they went into Paducah, and they found a place for me to stay, so I could stay aboard and go to school. And so I went in there. I was 2 weeks late, though. For some reason, I didn't get in there in time to begin school. I was 2 weeks late. And when I went in to the high school, I looked around, I remember, and I thought, I wonder where the superintendent or the principal, whatever I called him, wonder where he is. I saw a bunch of boys over in the end of the hall. Several boys had another young fellow up on their shoulders, and they were carrying him around, and in a little bit I realized that he, the one they were carrying around, was the superintendent of the school, a young fellow just out of college, Professor Cook. So, anyway, I started in 2 weeks late. And I soon, this was my first experience with having close girlfriends. And I soon made friends with Earl Leadham, whose father ran the newspaper, also was an auctioneer, and Marion Hanson, whose father was a carpenter. And we went around together all the time. They called us the triplets because we were never apart.
that's unusual for 3 girls.
Yeah.
What was her
Yeah.
Hanson girls? You remember the father's name?
Fred, no, not Fred Hansen. I don't remember, but they're spelled Hansen. I think they were names. Yeah. But we got along. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Did you get home at weekends ever?
I came home for Thanksgiving, and that was when Rose came down. Was it Thanksgiving or Christmas? She came down to the area. I believe it was Thanksgiving that I came home.
I think you could take the train to Rita and then go with Blake Fisk, the mailman, on a wagon, cross the White River.
This is right. But I did not go to Paducah that way. I did not go to Paducah.
But you came home, I'll bet, with Blake.
I don't remember. Not then. Not that. No, not when I was in Paducah.
Yes, through the canyon.
Oh yes,
it was precipitous.
You see, in the meantime, while I was gone to Nebraska, I think it was, going to school, was when enough white ranchers had come in. The government had given permission to the Indians to either sell or lease their land to white ranchers if they wanted to. So the Indians had it for sale or lease at a very inexpensive price, very low price. And so farmers from Iowa and eastern South Dakota began coming in, and found out what good land it was in Washtenaw County. So quite a few white ranchers came into the area. And then Litzkamp had moved in. A man came up from Crookston, Nebraska, and started a store in Litzkamp. And they soon decided they needed to have a post office there, because previously we had to drive to Porch, 12 miles away, to get our mail. Our address was Porch, South Dakota. And so they had established a post office, and they named it Wanblee. Wanblee, W-A-N-B-L-I, in the way they spelled the Indian, in the Indian dictionary, meant eagle, for Eagle Nest Butte. Eagle Nest Butte was the name of this big butte 7 miles south of there. And so they decided they would call Litzkamp, give the name of the post office, give the name of Wanblee to the post office, W-A-N-B-L-E-E instead of B-L-I, so that people would pronounce it correctly. And so the man, Royal Serby, that started the store, also had the post office there in the store. And people began coming in. Quite a few white settlers came into the area there within a number of years.
They brought sheep and cattle.
They brought sheep, and began farming, because you see, the Sioux Indian didn't like to farm. They didn't like to ranch, they didn't like to farm. And so they were glad to lease it to white ranchers who were interested in that sort of thing.
How often did they get food from the government? Was it once a month? Was the
When we went there, they had what they called they had a commissary. Yes, ration day. Ration day. And the Indians would come in once a month for their rations. And usually on ration day, the government, they had a slaughterhouse outside the village. And they would slaughter several cattle, how many it needed to, the government did, and issue beef to the Indians. And that day it would be, if it was in the summertime, then the Indians would strip the beef in thin strips, and they had a rack made of poles, and they'd throw these strips of beef over the rack in the hot sun to sear and to dry, and that was the jerky. And dried beef, and they used it they cooked it, and even ate it raw, I guess, did they, Bill?
I don't know.
I think they chewed on it.
They mixed it with wild choke
Yeah, they would grind it up, and...
You mean you had choke cherries out there too?
Oh, yes, there were wild...
I thought that was a Wisconsin phenomenon.
No, choke cherries and buffalo berries and June berries and
wild plums.
Lots of wild plums. The Indians had this is a whole new area of thought here, the Indians' food. But they, as Esther said, they ground up the beef, and they ground up the choke cherries.
Seeds and all. They
Seeds and all, and
seeds of the
made a
cherries.
kind of a pudding with meat, this dried meat in it.
Was that called pemmican?
No,
that wasn't pemmican. I don't know what they called it.
To dry it, that was to dry it.
Yeah.
That's it. They hung it, to dry it, they hung it up, and that's the way they would keep it in the summertime. So,
And then they also got sugar, didn't they, from the government? Didn't they get
yes.
flour and
There were
sugar?
commodities.
I have a postcard of a ration day and an Indian woman with a bag of food. They carried the food in a bag.
But that's where when he lived, out in Iowa and North Dakota.
Yes.
My father spent a lot of time out.
Is that right?
In North Dakota.
Oh,
He
yes.
had all the daughters
yes.
out there.
Uh-huh.
And he used to love dry beef.
Yes.
I mean, real dry beef.
But what I couldn't understand is why they could eat it, because the flies were always swarming around.
Mother
that food.
said,
What?
Mother said that, you see, they knew they'd hang it out in the hottest part of the day, and in that clear atmosphere, the sun was very hot in the middle of the summer, and it would sear the beef before the flies had a chance to blow it.
Yeah.
Lay eggs in it.
That was it.
Yeah, but once in a while though they would, and Mama got very sick one time.
Yeah.
He did, because the meat had been blown, and then it was really bad.
Yeah.
So anyway, they established the post office, Swanville, and the mail route then was to go through Buckle Canyon, right north of Bonville, to Wheaton, South Dakota, which was around 13 miles, I guess, to the north on the railroad across White River. And that road that went in the bottom, followed the bottom of the canyon along, crossed Buckle Creek, the name of the creek, 32 times.
In 12 miles.
30.
12, 9, no crossings.
Very, very,
Went down,
very
floated it.
small stream. In some places it was heavy.
Yeah.
And you could stop and get a drink right out of the stream, and I've done it. And I lost my first pair of glasses, laying them down, and then taking a drink, and then couldn't find them afterwards. This is years later.
Because they were washed away, or because
No, I
you couldn't see?
didn't. Well, because it was, everybody was hurrying to go, and I just couldn't find them. So I went home, and I was practically blind. How could I find my glasses in the
She
wheels?
wore glasses from the time you were...
Quite 9 years old before I got them. So this is a number of years later.
Yes.
Well, let's see now. We're back to while you finished your education. You said I got to finish my education. And you got a boyfriend up there?
Oh, yes.
My dad thought was...
Why did you take it?
Well, I'll tell you.
Another question.
Once I was 15, you see.
Big girl.
A little old for a
Beautiful
freshman in
girl.
high school. But I had these two good girlfriends. And then the place I stayed, I sort of helped out, sort of helped pay my expense, which was good because it kept me busy. And came home for Thanksgiving, and I don't remember if it was Thanksgiving or Christmas. It was a vacation when Sister Rose, they were having a program over in the day school for the holiday. I think it was Thanksgiving. But Rose didn't go.
Rose
said,
and I ran away.
Ethel, would you stay, because Rose is kind of sick. She has sort of a sore throat, and I don't want to take her over there.
You see, the
And
doctor had
everybody else-
inoculated everybody else for smallpox and diphtheria, but Rose and I ran away. Mother thought that Dad had us and with the group there, and he thought Mother had us. So neither one of us. But Mother thought, well, if all the Indians don't have it, I suppose it'll be a bit. But then that's why
I didn't
she
know
got
that,
it.
Esther.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I didn't
And
know
then one
that
of my
part.
stories is where we ran away, got down
Oh.
onto Buckle Creek.
And you
And hid.
dated the
So we didn't, the needle, we didn't want the needle.
the vaccination. Anyway, Ethel, she says, do you really want to go over to this program, or would you just as soon stay with Rose? Because I don't want to take her over there. She has kind of a sore throat. And I said, yes, I'll stay. So I may be misjudging the time, but it seems as though it was that time. I said, Rose, let me look at your throat. So she opened up her mouth, and I looked down at her throat, and here was a great big sack of yellow pus down there. Oh, my goodness. And when the program was over and they came back, I told Mother, I wish you would look in Rose's throat. It's really